Welcome to episode 14 of Rise of a Nation. This episode is on the Dominican Republic.
Okay, so a lot of you have been asking for it, and we're finally going there.
Right.
We're diving into the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
A lot to cover.
There's a lot to cover.
Absolutely.
So we've got a lot of different stuff for this one.
Yeah.
We've got historical articles. We've got Wikipedia entries. We've got documentary transcripts.
A good mix.
We're going to try and see if we can get through all of it.
Okay.
I think a good place to start would be at the very, very beginning.
Sounds good to me.
1492.
Yeah, so what's really interesting about Hispaniola is that it's really like the first place
Okay.
that Columbus really settles in.
I see.
So he shows up there in 1492, claims it for Castile, names it La Isla Española.
Right.
And it becomes this kind of it's the first place he sets up a colony in the New World.
Wow.
And so it's really like a huge part of early colonization.
So it's not just a port
No.
or a place that they stop at to get supplies.
That's like a foundational site.
They're settling there.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
Setting up shop.
okay. And so who's already there?
So the eastern part of the island was called Quisqueya
This gay.
by the native Taino people.
I see.
And it means like mother of all lands or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So it really gives you an idea of kind of like their connection to it.
Yeah.
They were divided into 5 chiefdoms.
Okay.
So they had their own systems of government.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, obviously the arrival of the Spanish totally disrupts
Of course.
all of that.
Right.
And really has devastating effects on them.
So they're obviously just looking to extract resources.
Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game
Yeah.
at this point in history.
But Hispaniola doesn't just stay Spanish, right?
No, it doesn't. Another European power gets involved pretty quickly, and it's actually France.
Right.
They see the value in the island, too,
Makes sense.
both strategically and just in terms of resources.
Right.
And they end up getting control of the western part of the island, which becomes the French colony of Saint-Domingue.
So this one little island is now split between these 2 huge empires.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that plays out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the beginning of the separate histories of Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
So you've got Spain, we got France, everyone's fighting over this island.
Yeah, it's a hot commodity.
And then things change in Europe.
Right.
So they're going through the French Revolutionary Wars, and there's a lot of fallout.
Yep.
And Spain ends up ceding Santo Domingo to France.
Exactly. In 1795.
Yeah.
As part of the Treaty of Basel.
So this is a big shift again.
Yeah. Huge.
Spain's out, and now it's all France.
Exactly.
Okay, so what happens next?
Well, things get even more interesting.
Okay.
In 1801,
Yeah.
this guy named Toussaint Louverture
Oh, yeah.
arrives in Santo Domingo,
Right.
and he's acting on behalf of the French Republic.
Yeah, okay.
And he abolishes slavery across the entire island.
Oh, wow. So this is huge.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
But
Of course, there's a...
yeah, there's always a key,
Right.
but Napoleon's not having it,
Uh-oh.
and he sends an army to take control back.
So France is back in control of the whole island?
Yeah, for a little while.
Okay.
But the thing is that the people who were formerly enslaved,
Yeah.
they're not going to just accept that.
Yeah.
So they resist.
They fight back?
Yeah, they fight back, and they actually end up defeating the French.
Really?
Yeah, in 1803,
Oh, wow.
which is crazy.
Yeah. So what happens then?
Well, that leads to Saint-Domingue declaring independence on January 1st, 1804.
As Haiti.
Exactly. And they adopt the Taino name for the island.
So the whole island is now Haiti.
Yep, the first black republic in the world.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah, it's a huge turning point in history.
Absolutely. But what about the eastern part of the island?
Well, they're still dealing with some stuff.
Okay.
There's still a small French garrison in Santo Domingo.
Right.
And some of the Spanish colonists who had fled earlier, they start to come back. And they even try to reestablish slavery in that area.
Really?
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah. So Haiti's obviously not going to be okay with that.
No, they're not.
Right.
So in 1805,
Yeah.
Emperor Jean-Jacques Dessalines of Haiti,
Okay.
he leads an invasion into Santo Domingo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
They actually reach the capital,
Oh, wow.
but then they have to retreat because a French naval squadron shows up.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's bad news for them.
Right.
And as they're retreating, they actually sack Santiago and Mocha.
So there's still a lot of instability, even though Haiti's independent.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so where do the Spanish fit into all of this?
Well, they're not entirely out of the picture.
Okay.
In 1809, with some help from the British,
All
this
right.
guy named Juan Sanchez Ramirez,
Right.
he takes back the capital of Santo Domingo.
So the Spanish are back?
Yeah, it's called the Spanish Reconquest.
I see.
And Ramirez, he gets appointed as the captain general and mayor.
Okay.
And they're basically trying to restore Spanish sovereignty.
Right.
They reopened the Universidad Santo Tomás de Aquino.
Wow.
They try to resume trade with Spain's allies.
So they're really trying to go back to how things were.
Yeah, it's like a reset.
Right.
But it's not that simple.
Of course not.
Ramirez, he does allow trade with Britain,
Okay.
which is interesting because they weren't really allies.
Right.
But here's the thing that really causes problems.
Okay.
He reestablishes slavery.
Oh, no, after the Haitians had gotten rid of it.
Yeah, it's a huge step backwards.
Yeah, and that's going to cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, it does.
Right.
People try to overthrow him. There are rebellions,
Right.
but he's pretty ruthless.
Yeah.
He executes rebels or sends them to Ceuta, which was a Spanish prison in North Africa.
Wow. So this is a really harsh period.
Yeah, it's not a good time.
Okay, so what happens next?
Well, Ramirez dies in 1811.
Right.
And this period of Spanish rule, it's actually kind of known as the España Boba. It means foolish Spain.
Oh, wow.
They're basically saying that Spain was really mismanaging things.
Yeah.
And they were suppressing anyone who wanted independence.
So not a good look for Spain.
No, not at all.
Okay, so they've gone through this whole thing with the Spanish again,
Right.
and then they decide to declare independence again.
Yeah, in 1821,
Okay.
they declare independence again.
Yeah.
This time they call it the Republic of Spanish Haiti.
The Republic of Spanish Haiti.
Yeah, kind of a mouthful.
Yeah, a little bit.
And it's led by this guy named Jose Núñez de Cáceres.
Okay.
And there's even talk of maybe joining Gran Colombia.
Oh, wow. So they're looking at all their options.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out what's best for them.
Right.
But Haiti has other plans.
Oh.
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, Haiti, they're led by Jean-Pierre Boyer at this time.
Okay.
And in 1822,
Yeah.
he invades Santo Domingo.
Well, how many people?
He's got like 10,000 soldiers.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a serious invasion.
So what does Núñez de Cáceres do?
He surrenders without a fight.
Really?
Yeah, he figures it's the best option.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, what else is he going to do?
Yeah, 10,000 soldiers is a lot.
Exactly.
Okay, so Haiti's back in control.
Yeah, this time it lasts for 22 years.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, it's a significant chunk of their history.
Okay, so what's it like under Haitian rule?
Well, it's complicated.
Okay.
For Dominicans, it's often seen as a period of brutal military rule.
Right.
And there definitely were some harsh aspects.
Okay.
Like they expropriated land.
Oh,
They forced people to grow export crops.
I see.
They had mandatory military service.
Oh.
And they restricted the use of the Spanish language.
So they were really trying to assert their culture and control.
Yeah, they were definitely trying to make their mark.
Right.
They even suppressed some Dominican customs, like cockfighting.
Really?
Yeah, it was a big deal back then.
Yeah.
So it was seen as like an attack on their culture.
Right, but there must have been some positives, right?
Well, yeah, actually. One good thing that came out of it
Yeah.
was the end of slavery.
Oh, wow. So it stayed abolished.
Yeah, for good.
So that's a huge win.
Yeah, definitely a positive outcome.
Okay, so even though it was a tough time for the Dominicans,
Yeah,
there was that one really good thing that came out of it.
absolutely.
Okay, but they don't stay under Haitian rule forever?
No, they don't. In 1844,
Yeah.
they declare their independence.
Again?
Yeah, third time's the charm.
All right, so tell me about this.
Okay, so on February 27th,
Yeah.
this group called the Trinitarios,
Who are they?
they're a secret society of Dominican nationalists.
Okay.
They've been planning this uprising for a while.
Right.
And they finally decide to declare independence.
From Haiti?
Yep.
Okay, so what happens?
Well, this starts what's called the Dominican War of Independence.
Okay.
And there's this guy named Pedro Santana.
Okay.
He's a wealthy cattle rancher.
All right.
And he has his own private army.
Oh, wow. So he's a powerful guy.
Yeah, he's a major player.
Right.
And he ends up backing the independence movement.
So he's on the Dominican side.
Yep, he's all in.
Okay, so what happens in the war?
Well, it's a tough fight.
Yeah.
Haiti tries to regain control several times.
Really?
Yeah, they're not giving up easily.
Right.
But the Dominicans, they managed to hold them off.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
They actually win a decisive victory in March 1844.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a huge turning point in the war.
Okay.
And then later on, they even attack Haitian coastal towns with their own navy.
Wow. So they're really going on the offensive.
Yeah, they're not messing around.
Right.
And then finally in 1855,
Yeah.
they win some more decisive victories.
So that's it. They're independent.
Yeah, finally.
So that's how the Dominican Republic is born.
Exactly. Hard-fought independence.
Yeah, it was definitely a long road to get there.
No kidding.
Okay, so they're independent now.
Right.
But does that mean things settle down?
Well, not exactly.
Of course not.
The late 19th and early 20th centuries are pretty unstable.
In what way?
Politically,
Okay.
they're going through revolutions, coups, all sorts of changes in leadership.
So it's still a very volatile place.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay. And meanwhile, what's going on in the world?
Well, the U.S. is becoming a major world power,
Right.
and they're taking a particular interest in the Caribbean.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, a big reason is the Panama Canal.
Oh, right.
They finished it in 1914,
Yeah.
and it completely changes the strategic importance of the Caribbean.
Makes sense.
They already control Cuba and Puerto Rico,
Right.
and they see Hispaniola as a potential weak point.
Right, in terms of defending the canal.
Exactly.
Okay, so they're already concerned about the Dominican Republic?
Yeah, and on top of that, they're worried about German influence in Haiti.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's a tense time.
Right.
And then you've got all the political turmoil in the Dominican Republic.
Right, with all the coups and everything.
Exactly. It's a powder keg.
Yeah.
And the U.S. also has economic interests there. They're invested in the sugar industry.
Right, so they want to protect their investments.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what do they do?
Well, they end up occupying the Dominican Republic.
Oh, wow. So they send in troops.
Yeah, in 1916.
Okay.
U.S. Marines land in Santo Domingo.
So what's the justification for this?
Well, officially, they say that the Dominican Republic violated the Dominico-American Convention of 1907.
Which was?
It was basically an agreement that gave the U.S. some control over Dominican finances.
I see.
But really, it's about all the factors we just talked about.
Right. They want to protect their interests and stabilize the region.
Exactly.
Okay, so how does this occupation play out?
Well, it starts with a conflict between the Dominican president and his minister of war.
Oh, wow. So even within the government, there's a lot of tension.
Yeah, it's a messy situation.
Right.
The U.S. basically forces the minister of war to leave.
How do they do that?
They threaten to bombard Santo Domingo.
Oh, wow. So they're not messing around.
Nope, they mean business.
Right.
And then the president, he ends up resigning too.
So the U.S. is really calling the shots.
Yeah, they're in control.
Okay, so what happens next?
They establish a military government.
Oh, wow. So they're fully in charge now.
Yep, they run the whole show.
And how do Dominicans react to this?
Well, there's a lot of resentment.
Makes sense.
They see it as a violation of their sovereignty.
Right.
There's even a guerrilla movement that resists the occupation.
Really?
Yeah, they're called the Guerrilleros.
Okay.
And they're fighting in the eastern provinces.
So there's armed resistance.
Yeah, it's a serious fight.
Wow.
There are also protests organized by groups like the Junta Patriotica de Damas,
Okay.
which is like a patriotic league of ladies.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they're very active in opposing the occupation.
So it's not just men who are resisting.
No, it's a broad-based movement.
Right.
And eventually, public opinion in the U.S. starts to turn against the occupation, too.
Really?
Yeah, people are starting to see it as an overreach.
And that leads to a plan for withdrawal.
Finally.
Yeah, it's called the Hughes-Paynato Plan.
Okay.
And they set up a provisional government.
Right.
And by 1924, the U.S. is fully out.
So the occupation is over.
Yep, 8 years later.
Wow. So that's a big part of Dominican history.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, but they leave behind a bit of a legacy, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What is it?
Well, they created the Guardia Nacional, which is basically a new Dominican army,
Right.
but it's trained by the Americans.
I see.
And this is going to have a huge impact on Dominican politics.
Because?
Well, certain Rafael Trujillo joined the Guardia Nacional in 1918.
Oh, right. He was a young man then.
Yeah, just starting out.
Right.
And this is where he begins his rise to power.
So the U.S. occupation indirectly helps bring Trujillo to power.
Yeah, you could say that.
Wow. Okay, so tell me about Trujillo's rise.
All right, so after the U.S. leaves,
Yeah.
he starts climbing the ranks in the Guardia Nacional.
Okay.
By 1924, he's commander of the National Police.
Yeah, he's a powerful guy.
Right.
And then in 1928, he becomes a brigadier general.
So he's really moving up.
Yeah, he's ambitious and strategic.
Right.
And he starts militarizing the police.
What does that mean?
He's basically making it its own independent force.
I see.
Loyal to him.
So he's consolidating his power.
Exactly.
Okay, and then in 1930, there's a coup.
Yep, against President Vasquez.
Okay.
And Trujillo, he plays this really clever game.
What does he do?
He secretly makes a deal with the rebel leader.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So he's playing both sides.
Kind of.
Okay.
He lets the rebels take the capital.
Without any resistance?
Exactly. He pretends to be neutral.
I see.
And in return, the rebel leader agrees to help Trujillo become president.
Wow, that's pretty sneaky.
Yeah, he's a master manipulator.
Right.
So the rebel leader becomes acting president,
Okay.
and Trujillo keeps control of the police and the army.
So he's really pulling the strings.
Correct. Yeah, he's got all the power.
Okay, and then there's an election.
Right, in May 1930. But it's not exactly fair.
What do you mean?
Well, Trujillo uses the army to intimidate the other candidates.
Oh, wow, so there's no real competition.
Nope, they all drop out.
Really?
Yeah, it's a sham election.
Right.
And Trujillo wins with like 99% of the vote.
That's impossible.
Yeah, even the U.S. ambassador at the time was like, this is bogus.
Wow, so everyone knows it's rigged.
Pretty much.
But Trujillo still takes power.
Yep, on August 16th, 1930.
And that's the beginning of the Trujillo era.
Exactly, 31 years of dictatorship.
Wow. Okay, so what's it like under Trujillo?
Well, it's brutal.
Rough.
He creates a cult of personality around himself and his family.
Right.
His security forces, they're responsible for thousands of deaths.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, estimates range from like 30,000 to 35,000.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, it's a really dark period.
Right.
One of the worst things he does
Yeah.
is the Parsley Massacre.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It's awful.
What happened?
Well, in 1937,
Yeah.
he orders the mass murder of Haitians living in the border region.
Wow, so it's a state-sponsored massacre.
Yep. It's estimated that between 17,000 and 35,000 Haitians were killed.
That's just unimaginable.
Yeah, it's a horrific event.
Right.
And it really damages relations between Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
Of course.
But it's not just violence and terror. Trujillo, he's also really good at consolidating power.
How so?
Well, by the 1940s, he controls most of the Dominican economy.
Really?
Yeah, he's got monopolies on all sorts of things.
Wow.
And he's incredibly wealthy.
I bet.
Yeah, by 1960, his personal fortune is estimated to be one of the largest in the world.
Wow, so he's basically stealing from the Dominican people.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
But on the surface, things look pretty good.
What do you mean?
Well, there's some economic growth.
Okay.
Industry expands. They create new institutions. They even eliminate the national debt.
So things are looking up.
Yeah, but it's all very superficial.
Okay.
The wealth is concentrated in the hands of Trujillo and his cronies.
Right.
And there's no real freedom. He
Because,
crushes any opposition.
right.
He's got these execution lists.
Wow, so if you speak out against him, you're dead.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's a scary time to be in the Dominican Republic.
Right.
And he uses all sorts of methods to stay in power.
Okay.
Fraud, dishonesty, violence, murder, you name it.
So he's basically a textbook dictator.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, but there must have been some good things that happened under his rule, right?
Well, yeah, there were a few.
Okay.
Like after the San Zenon hurricane in 1930,
Yeah.
he was very effective in leading the recovery effort.
So he could be a good leader when he wanted to be?
Yeah, when it suited him.
Right.
And he also kept the armed forces very loyal to him.
So he was smart about how he maintained his power.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so what about the U.S.? What's their relationship with Trujillo like?
Well, it's complicated.
Okay.
At first, they basically tolerate him.
Why is that?
Well, as long as he keeps things stable and protects their interests, they're happy.
So it's a pragmatic relation.
Exactly.
Right.
But as time goes on
Yeah.
and Trujillo's human rights abuses become more widely known,
Right.
the U.S. starts to distance themselves.
Okay.
And there's actually evidence that the CIA was involved in supplying weapons to the people who eventually assassinated Trujillo.
Really?
Yeah, in 1961.
Oh, wow. So the U.S. had a hand in his downfall.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Wow. That's a crazy story.
Yeah, it's a wild ride.
So we've gone from Columbus to the Spanish to the French to the Haitians to the Americans to Trujillo.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah, the Dominican Republic has been through a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing they've survived it all.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's the biggest takeaway from all of this?
Well, I think one of the most important things to remember
Yeah.
is that the Dominican Republic's history is full of external influences.
Right, from colonization to occupation to foreign interference.
Exactly. They've always been caught in the crosshairs of global power struggles.
Yeah, and that's had a huge impact on their development.
Absolutely. It's shaped their politics, their economy, their culture, everything.
So it's not just about what's happened within the country.
No, it's about how they've been affected by events outside their control.
Right, and that's something that's still relevant today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The legacy of those historical periods is still felt today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's interesting to think about
Yeah.
General Imbert,
Right.
who was involved in Trujillo's assassination.
Yeah.
50 years later, he said the only way to get rid of him was to kill him,
Wow.
which really shows just how extreme Trujillo's regime was.
Right, and the lengths people had to go to stop him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a weird detail.
What is it?
He still wears the shoes he wore on the night of the assassination every May 30th.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, like a personal commemoration of that event.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's clear that history has left its mark.
On the Dominican Republic and its people. Yeah, and I think that's a good reminder for us to think about the impact of those historical periods.
Yeah, and how they continue to shape the Dominican Republic's relationship with the world.
Right, and how they continue to shape the Dominican Republic itself.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's something for everyone to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
How do those historical events, from colonization to occupation to dictatorship,
Yeah.
how do they continue to play a role in the Dominican Republic today?
What are the consequences?
Exactly.
What are the legacies?
And what responsibility do external powers bear?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It is a big question.
But I think it's one worth asking.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
So that's the Dominican Republic.
Quite a story.
It is quite a story.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to explore,
Always.
but we'll have to save that for another time.
Sounds good.
All right, everyone, thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for watching episode 14 of Rise of a Nation. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe for more. Write in the comments what country's rise you would like me to cover next.